Welcome to Women We Should Know with international speaker, mindset reset mentor, author, and your host, Lesley Michaels. With audacious honesty and candor, the Women We Should Know podcast presents the wisdom and life-empowering insights of women who are the embodiments of innovation and social evolution. Please join Lesley as she shares potent conversations that will inspire your personal and professional evolutions. Welcome to Women We Should Know.
Welcome back to Women We Should Know, the podcast where we consistently bring you the voices, the innovation, the curiosity, and the audacity of women who are out in the world challenging the status quo, changing paradigms, refusing to color inside the lines, refusing to get into boxes that were created by someone else. And as those of you who have been with me a while have often heard me say, the most beautiful thing about these women is as they carve a new path, every one of them leaves a light on so that others can see where that path is. Well, today we have just such a woman with us. Nellie Harden is an author, speaker, and family life and leadership coach who focuses on helping parents love and lead their teen and tween daughters in a way that teaches them to love and lead themselves while building a strong foundation of worth, esteem, and confidence, all before they leave home. Have we not waited generations for this? So many of us have had to go out in the world without that and suffer through the knocks and blows of trying to find it ourselves. So it's beautiful that we have people out there such as Nellie who are teaching parents how to teach this. She is a wife, a mom to 4 teenage daughters, a retired homeschool parent, and an adventure chaser. Her career is in biology and psychology with years of personal, family, and faith leadership development, and a diverse behavior background from humpback whales in the South Pacific to teens and parents in homes across the world. She believes in a life of intention. Another thing that we're not taught when we're young is to have intentionality. She believes in making dreams and goals realities and knows that the best way to change the world is through one living room at a time. Isn't that beautiful? Well, I am truly honored, Nellie, to invite you to the show, to welcome you to the show, and to introduce you to our listeners.
Oh, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
I have a little tradition. I like to ask my guests, what has already inspired you today?
Well, I do, in the mornings, I do a lot of my reading and journaling time, and I always love to read all the books that kind of challenge my thought process. Thinking is one of my favorite things to do. And so I was reading a book today, and it really did challenge me to think of the process that I go through, and it just ignited me, I will say. So I read something that then turned around and ignited me for the work that I do even more, and the voice that needs to be heard out in the world in order to embolden, young women, more mature women, all alike, so that we can walk around with this internal foundation of worth, esteem, and confidence. So I was inspired today by something I read that then ignited the work I do.
That's beautiful. And I really appreciate that you say young women, but also mature women, because I was contemplating your work after we spoke earlier. And the fact that you are starting with parents strikes me as incredibly brilliant because, as I said in the intro, we as women were not given these traits. We were not given these foundational tools when we were young, and we've developed them as we've gone as far as we have.
Right.
So I can well imagine that your parents benefit tremendously from your work as you are helping them to help their daughters.
100%. So I would say, as far as parents right now and women and mothers right now, I'm more surprised to hear, pleasantly surprised to hear when I run into a woman that has these internal foundations within her and has throughout her whole life. It is a rarity, right? But that shows up in life in so many different ways. And one of the things that triggered this work I do, and really my life, my work, my career, it's all one. And so
It is.
it is all one. But one of the things that really triggered me was when I was in my 30s and 40s, I was going through a lot of personal development work, leadership development work, and my kids would come with me. When I would go and I would do talks, or I would go and I would listen to talks, I'd go to seminars and conventions and all these things. And my kids, even at their young ages, were soaking in so much of that information, and we were having such rich conversations. And then I just started wondering, why is it that we wait, if ever, to get this leadership and personal and faith development, relationship development training when we are more in a job perspective later on in life, when it can be inserted into the rock of the 65-70, which is that is the period of time, the parenthood-childhood dynamic of the first 6,570 days of your child's life, or 18 years. So when you're in the 65-70 as a parent or a child, that is the highest impact zone that you are going to have in developmental period. And so if we can put some of this development work into that time, we are setting them up for successes that would either be postponed or never had before, because they didn't have these internal foundations that were set within them during that time. Many of us women at now in our 30s, 40s, hundreds, whatever, we had to build them on our own in adulthood. And that's really, really, really hard to do. And I am one of them as well. And when you are trying to take the foundation you were given, because we were all given a foundation, right? Frail or strong or what have you, and we're trying to change it, we need to take like a jackhammer and we need to chisel it away little by little. And then sometimes it fills back in on you, right? After you feel like you've made headway, and then it just fills back in. And so it's much better to start on a good path rather than having to change the path later, as a woman, as a person. And so that's why I take this work and I put it with families. And many times, more than not, it is the family that goes through it together, building these. Because so many parents out there, so many moms are like, I can't teach my kid how to have worth because I don't have worth. I can't teach my kid how to have confidence because I don't have confidence. So let's do it together.
Yes. I appreciate the fact that you mentioned that we all have a foundation, no matter what it is. I once read an analogy that invited the reader to visualize their emotional foundation as their skeletal structure. And however strong or weak your emotional structure is, imagine your skeletal structure as being that strong or weak. If your skeletal structure was that strong or weak, you would have trouble moving around in the world physically. Would you attend to it? Well, attend to your emotional structure and foundation just as much as you would your skeletal structure. I thought that was a brilliant analogy.
I would totally agree. And what I find interesting too is that you can even see it in a physical realm as a woman walking around. I know that, just to give you an example, it was around 2010 to 2012 that I started putting together my own work and sharing it out with the world. I mean, for lack of a better word, I had to do this work within my family because we went through a life-shifting health crisis with my husband and then my daughter, and all within this time period. And we had to make so many changes as far as emotional health, our communication. Even though the girls were really young, we had to have really hard conversations, right? And we had to have family disciplines that were changing, and how we were eating and what we were doing and all of these things. And so I did it for the family. And then I was just called to then turn around and share it with others, right? You've done this for you. Now go share it with others. And that's what I did. But even my physical appearance back in 2010, my husband is a huge extrovert. I am not. People see me now and they're like, oh, you're an extrovert. I'm like, no, I'm not. I just pretend to be every so often so I can get my message out and then I return.
I totally understand that one.
Yes. But I was just kind of known as Brian's wife, and I was totally fine with that. And my husband was the exuberant one and doing all this stuff. And I was fine just kind of standing in the shadow behind him, not because he put me there by any means. That was just my comfy spot, right? And then once I had this mission ahead of me, and in order to accomplish this mission, I had to build those foundations within myself and then teach other people how to do that too. And my point is, I was kind of curled over. I was hiding, right? My skeletal structure, my foundations were weak, and I had to build them strong. And there was a lot of falls, bumps, and bruises and hurts along the way in order to do that. Because when you think about it, anyone that's watched Harry Potter, someone breaks their bone and they give them that, magical juice to fix it. And it was painful to fix it, but then it was stronger on the other side. And that's what happens. So when you're going on a journey like this, you got to know it's going to be a gauntlet, but you're going to get out the other side so much stronger. And that's what childhood is too. It is a gauntlet of experiences. And we want to help our kids go off into the world stronger and strong enough internally with that structure.
Right. Well, giving birth is painful.
Right.
But it doesn't stop there. And yet there is a level where it does. Women get to the place where, that change is too painful. That shift is too awkward. But it's part of the journey.
100%.
Yes.
I was just part of a birth. One of the young women that we mentor, or that I mentor, was giving birth a couple weeks ago, and this was her second. And I was in the birthing room with both of them. And so even then, and she almost did a completely natural birth. So it was painful, right? But then not even 6 hours later, she was talking about the next ones down the line, And so you get through it, and there's a huge reward. And then you're like, looking in hindsight, it wasn't so bad. We got here and it was worth it.
Yes, exactly. Now, once those children come in, especially girls, because our society is not only built to not support female self-esteem, it is built to crush female self-esteem. Good girls don't do that. You have to be a nice girl. All these ridiculous things that are still in place. You speak to the fact that one of your great goals in helping women walk their journey from teenage years or even younger into adulthood is to help them develop the level of confidence that is most easily developed early in life and then can carry them through. Can you speak to that?
Absolutely. Well, there is a distinction in the first half of childhood to the second half of childhood, right? And so in the second half of childhood, this really is the training ground for life. And in order to be a success in life, and success being termed as you are living out your passions and purposes, right? It has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with, someone else wanting you to do something or what have you. It is right. It is living out your own passions and purpose. That is what a successful life looks like. And so in the second half of childhood, when we are helping them develop that, we have to have these internal structures that are in place. And it really is, think about it like a 3-tiered cake. It is worth first, and then esteem, and then confidence. And that worth piece right there has to be the base of everything else, because think about it. In order to feel have your self-esteem, which is value and appreciation for yourself, you can't have that if you don't feel worthy of it. And then you certainly can't believe in yourself and have confidence if you don't feel worthy, right?
Right.
And so there are these 5 basic needs that every human has. During adolescence, these things are on fire because that prefrontal cortex is being laid down
Right.
as we're going along, right? And at the same time, we can't use that as an excuse. Like, oh, well, they can't, take in risk assessment. They can't understand debate as well. They can't understand other perspectives as well. Well, that might be true, but right now you're laying the wires for the connection. So you have to keep moving along in that direction. But these 5 needs that they have, that you have, that I have, are to be seen and heard and loved and belong and have a purpose. If you look back at the massive mental health struggles that we are dealing with in today's world, especially with women, right?
Yes.
So many of them, I would say the vast majority of them, come down to one or more of those needs not being fulfilled from their perspective. I don't feel like anyone sees me. I don't feel like I am loved by anyone. I don't feel like I belong anywhere. I have no purpose, so what's the point? No one hears me. I don't feel validated in my voice, right?
Right.
And so if we can start there as women, and we can just ask ourselves, okay, how can we fill these needs, right? What does it feel like when these have been filled? Have they ever been really filled in my life? What does this look like? Who has filled them or helped me fill them? Is there a time that they have been filled, but nobody else has been around? And I'll give you an example. For me, during meditation or prayer, I can say all of those are filled for me, but not a single person is around. And so that for me is a place that I can go to all the time, and it's always available to me. And those are always filled there. And it's not something that I have to rely on the world to give me. It's something that I can build and then give out to the world.
Right. Right. We were speaking earlier, and there is one school of thought and that speaks about you have your self-esteem, and then there are all these outside tributaries coming.
Mm-hmm.
Could you speak to that?
Yes. So there is one school of thought that you are, like a lake, and there's all these tributaries that are flowing into it. And that lake is your self-esteem, right? And your confidence, and it's all rolled into one. And you have all of these streams that come into it. And if it gets blocked or stopped for one reason, that's okay, because you can have another. And then the question becomes, hold on, what if they all get stopped? Where does that leave me, right? Do I just dry up? Do I not believe in myself at all, right? Do I not understand myself at all? And the way that I view self-esteem is defined as value and appreciation of self. That takes trust. And so if you can learn how to trust yourself, and that happens between your ears, and then the outgoing actions that happen from there. When you've established your worth, right? You know how to fill those needs. You know what to look for in people that can fill those needs. So you can set up your community as an uplifting community and not one that's going to suppress you or keep you down, right? And then you're working toward this self-trust, which comes into and is its expression is self-esteem. I trust myself. That all happens between your ears. I know the feelings that happen when this trigger is happening. I know my inner accountability because I know my values that I have. I know my outer accountability, this person or idea that I trust, and I'm going to, is this okay with them? Would it be okay? All right, right? And it's so funny, just to, I'll pause. I've worked on, it's a HALT cycle that I talk about, her aligning living thoughts. And I've talked to people about this outside accountability so many times. Sometimes it is Wonder Woman. Sometimes it is God. Sometimes it is Jesus. Sometimes it is Abraham Lincoln. Sometimes it's their mother, whatever that is, someone that they hold to have this integrity and to be able to trust, whether fictional, real, alive, not here, but someone that they hold with this integrity to just check in with, right? And be like, would they be okay with this, right? And then going through my internal values fence, right? Is this aligned with my values? And then coming out as my decisions and behavior. And when you can get that cycle working for you, that, thoughts, feelings, decisions, behavior, result, that system happens anyway. You and I here, everyone, all the time, that process is happening. So when we can harness a natural process and use it to our benefit in order to grow trust within ourselves, and then instead of all of these tributaries coming in, we are in the middle and we are pushing out self-esteem to other people because we have an overflowing abundance of trust in ourselves. We value and appreciate ourselves. And now we can help others do the same as well. And so instead of incoming, esteem and confidence, let's create it from within and have it outgoing to pour into others.
Absolutely. One thing you said that is not commonly said, I've heard it just a couple of times. And so if I haven't heard it, since I am just an information geek, so that our listeners haven't heard it, and that is the identification of inner and outer accountability and the difference.
Yeah, that to me is so important because when I interviewed several women and young women, so adolescents and adults, and when they are going through their thought cycle, because like I said, that thought cycle is happening no matter what. So let's use it for building trust in ourselves, but they didn't know that yet. And when I asked and interviewed so many of these women and asked, what do you go through? What is your first thought when you walk into a room and you are about to have some sort of action? What is your first filter that comes through? And things came up like, is it going to be funny? Will I be liked? Does it make me look good? Right? Will people like me more if I do this? And all of those, and I would say most of them, 99% of them, were variations of those four, right?
Right.
And those are fraught with subjectivity, right?
Right.
Because it's always going to change. And so when you walk into a room and you're like, will they like me more with this? Well, that person might like you more. That person might like you less, right? So we can't base our behaviors just on ourselves alone. That's why I think it is so important to have the stabilizing outside accountability be one of the first pit stops on your thoughts, feelings, decisions, actions, and results cycle that you go through, because you can check in and say, hold on a second, is this good? Right? And I'm not saying an actual check-in. It's not like phone a friend where you're like, you walk in a room and you're like, hey, hold on, I need to call my mom, or whatever. But an internal check-in to have that outside accountability. And then you move to your inner accountability, which takes work to figure out what your values are. Brene Brown has a wonderful list of core values that you can go through and kind of pick through which ones you feel like apply to you, and everyone is different. And some are going to fit into one another. You don't want to have a litany of like, oh, these are my 12 core values, because you're never going to be able to remember that and pull it up on the spot. So I say at max 3. And some of them feed into one another. So, mine are integrity, faith, and wisdom. And people are like, well, what about family? Like family's all, the big thing you do. Well, for me, family comes up under integrity, faith, and wisdom. Exactly. And so that is for me. So at first I asked myself, and my outer accountability is God. And so I ask, is this okay here? Right? I have this inner check-in. And then I ask, is this coming into my fence, my protective fence, my values fence of integrity, faith, and wisdom? Okay, and then we're going to move here. And my final checking point is this really who I am? Is this on my way, on my becoming journey to who I want to become, right? So If it's slanderous, if it's gossipy, if it is just because I'm not feeling heard, so I want to, sit up and be like, "Oh, listen to me, look at me." That's not really who I am trying to become. And so all of these filters and checkpoints then help me develop my trust in myself because I have a long record of following through and then having a better result because I
Right,
have these checkpoints lined up.
right, right. And that can apply to anyone. Your outer checkpoint is God. Someone
Mhm.
else can say, does this align with my Buddhist principles? Or if they are atheist, does this align with my individual personal morality?
Mm.
It can apply to anyone.
Like I said, some people use Wonder Woman. I love me some Wonder Woman.
Abe Lincoln's kind of interesting. But anyway, this is all brilliant, Nellie. How do our listeners start to apply some of this now? Would you be willing to give, let's say 3 action points that our listeners can begin to implement now to get a real life, day in, day out experience of what you're teaching and offering?
Absolutely. And it's a process that we go through in my program, Take the Lead. But some things that you can like take away right now is just to take one of those needs that I mentioned, right? So seen, heard, love, belong, purpose. And ask yourself these questions. When was the last time I felt, let's just say loved? When was the last time I truly felt loved? What was that environment like? What was I feeling? What was happening during that moment? And what is required of me to feel loved, right? And this is some real heart work that has to happen here.
Mhm.
What is required of me in order for me to feel loved? And then write some of those things down and then use it out in the world. And what I mean by that, we have this beautiful system in our brain called the RAS, reticulating activating system. And it is at the base of our brainstem over here. And when we look for something, we find something because the RAS is responsible for taking all of the billions and trillions of stimuli we get a day and organizing it to say, okay, this is important, this is not important, right?
Mhm.
And so when we can consciously tell this functionality of our brain, this is what we're looking for today, then you're much more able to find it. So when you ask yourself those questions about the 5 needs and say, okay, this is what I require of me in order to feel this way, in order for this need to be fulfilled, now I'm going to go look for that out in the world, things will turn around in such beautiful ways. And you can play with the RAS too. It's the same thing like, oh, I was just looking at a red car to buy, and now it seems like everybody owns a red car. No, the same amount of red cars are out there. It's just that you have activated your RAS in order to, and that's RAS.
Well, I'll be looking it up because I told you I'm an information geek.
Oh, it's so fun. It's so fun. So that's definitely something that I would recommend. And then, identifying, using the RAS. And then third, I would say really start to look into what those core values are of yours. And like I said, you can just Google. Brene Brown has a great list out there. There's many lists out there. And it's just a bunch of words and go down. And I really recommend that you circle all of them that you feel like attribute to you and then see which ones fit into others until you can get down to 3, maybe 4 at the most, but 3 of them and really sit inside of that and say, okay, I don't want anything coming into me that cannot pass through these 3 attributes, these 3 core values. If it doesn't, then it's not for me.
Brilliant. Just synthesize, synthesize, synthesize. Yeah. Try to say that 3 times. I lost.
I know. I was impressed when you were on the second time.
Well, the third one went a little awry, but nevertheless. Okay, I have another question for you because
Okay.
I work with women as well. That's not a big secret. How do you address, because I've heard this more than a few times, how do you address it when a woman says, I don't know how to feel love?
Yeah. That is a really hard one. And
Yes.
we have to go back and we need to ask there's a hierarchy in there in seen and heard and love, belong, and purpose. Okay. So we need to go back into their childhood. Something usually happened, or a long series of things happened in that foundation that was
Right.
built for her within the 65, 70. So asking questions way back, is there ever a time that you felt like someone truly heard you? Is there ever a time that you felt like people saw you for who you were and accepted you and cared for you, right? And unfortunately, there are some people in this world that have never had that experience, right? And so when they say, I don't know what it feels like to be loved, they're not lying, and they truly don't know. And so
Well,
then,
wasn't clear, maybe. Not, I don't know what it feels like to feel loved. I don't know how to love. They don't know how to experience or at least identify that feeling of love within themselves.
gotcha. So an outward pouring that you're talking about.
Yes, an outward pouring.
And so in that situation, we really need to look at environment. Like, who have you set up in your community, right? And asking them, well, what do you feel like it feels like to be loved? Because if they're having a trouble with the outpouring, 9 times out of 10, it's because they have trouble with the inpouring of love. They haven't felt it before, and
Right.
so they don't know how to turn around and give it as well. Same thing we were talking about with esteem and confidence. It needs to come from within so we can give it out to other people. And chances are she doesn't love herself. She has not learned how to love herself. And if she can't love herself, how can she even fathom loving somebody else?
Exactly. It's really heartbreaking to hear those.
It is.
It is.
It is.
Well, women, I know you have gotten lots of nuggets, as Nellie has been sharing here. And I'm going to do for you what I always do for you. I'm going to put all of her contact information, everything she'll let me pry out of her to share with you. I'm going to put on the program notes, so you'll be able to go to the website and get all of that, connect with her directly when you go and hear this on YouTube so that you can watch it when you're through jogging and not driving. Stay on your iPhone until then. Like, subscribe, and share. You know, this is my soapbox. What woman do you know? What one woman do you know who you feel would benefit from what Nellie shared today? Be a good sister. Send it to her. It's not up to you whether or not she watches it. It's just up to you whether or not you're a good sister and send it. So like, subscribe, and share. And lastly, but certainly not least, comment. One of the great purposes of Women We Should Know is to initiate stronger conversations among women. So as you comment, and you've heard me say, it doesn't have to be, oh, you are the greatest, the two of you. You can say anything you want. Lesley, don't ever wear that shirt again. But comment anyway. Participate in the conversation. We truly want to hear from you, and we want to be able to communicate with you. So like, subscribe, share, and comment. And go to the program notes to find Nellie's contact information. As we get ready to close out today here, Nellie, what would you like to leave our listeners with?
I would just love to say that it doesn't matter if you are 93, 103, or 13. There is more building that can be done within you, and to never give up on yourself in that building. We will never achieve a 100% confidence and esteem, right? It's
Right.
always a pursuit.
Yes.
And so be in pursuit for yourself. And then when you're in pursuit for yourself, you can pour out to the world as well.
That's right. It's always a new discovery, new gems to be found. Thank you so much. And listeners, thank you, as always, for tuning in. I appreciate you so much. Without you, there wouldn't be any purpose for me sitting in this chair having these wonderful conversations. So I truly appreciate you coming and sharing with us. And remember our little ritual. Take the nuggets that you got from Nellie, write them each down on separate pieces of paper, and then just toss them somewhere. On your messy desk, on the bar. You'll come across it in a few days or a week. That's a gift you're giving to your future self. When you come back across it, you get to read that and say, now, why did I write this down? You get to give that gift to yourself again. Take a new look at yourself. So have fun with those nuggets. Don't just let them fly by. And like, subscribe. We'd love to have you in our circle of communication. And as you go through the rest of the day, please remember, you are stronger and wiser than you know.